Dear all, I'm happy to welcome you on this session and thanks for joining us today on this brilliant event. And at the very beginning, let me remind you the rules and the short agenda of this session. You will get the very interesting speech, which is named Declarative GitOps CD for the Kubernetes. And at the end of the session, you will have the question and answer session. So don't forget to put your questions into the chat and vote for the best one on your opinion. And the best question will be able to get the prize at the end of the session. So without any additional words, let me pass the microphone to Guy who knows definitely a lot about the Kubernetes and had a more than 10 years experience in the IT. Alexander Ivanov, please welcome.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Alexander. I am system engineer in EPAM, and today I'm going to tell you about declarative GitOps deployment to Kubernetes. Our agenda. I cover shortly about what is GitOps. Tell you about Argo CD features, Argo Rollout, and how can we use Argo Rollout for BlueGreen and Canary Deployment. And at the end will be a short demo. As you know, Kubernetes today is very popular and really is the most popular container orchestration tool. Kubernetes win orchestration war. As a result, a lot of teams, projects start using Kubernetes. When you start using Kubernetes, you need to implement deployment to Kubernetes. You could use Jenkins for this, but I will tell you later why it's not suited for Kubernetes for some cases. Kubernetes supports such deployment strategy like create and rolling update. And unfortunately, it doesn't support BlueGreen and Canary deployment. What BlueGreen means? BlueGreen means that we deploy a new version of our application alongside with old one. And when new version is ready, we switch traffic to new version. It will be in zero time deployment switching. Canary deployment is when we deploy subset, when we deploy a new version to a subset of our users. And if it's okay, then process to a full rollout of new version. And the difficulties with using Jenkins will be when you need to implement BlueGreen or Canary deployment. Because if you need BlueGreen or Canary deployment of your application to Kubernetes, you will face that unfortunately then Jenkins doesn't have any plugins that could implement this. As a result, all logic would be implemented by you using Groovy scripts, a lot of Groovy scripts. Moreover, if you use horizontal pod autoscaler in your Kubernetes, I think you will use it. Horizontal pod autoscaler is a tool in Kubernetes that could scale your pods, your applications, depending on workloads. Yeah, as a result, amount of replicas in our cluster would be dynamical, and if you will write BlueGreen deployment in Jenkins, you should find out how many replicas currently running, how many replicants you should spin up of your new application, and so on. Also, we need to implement rollback. If something go wrong, you should roll back to previous version. And in Jenkins, it would be difficult to implement. Also, as a result, I start finding for tools. I wanted that it will be integrated with CI tools, and it will be Kubernetes native. Yeah. Another concern is related to Jenkins. Usually our production environment located in DMZ zone. As a result, our CI tools doesn't have direct access to DMZ zone. We need to use some jump host or bastion host to access production environment. Also, Jenkins require credentials to our Kubernetes, and not all security team wanted to do this to grant access to Kubernetes for Jenkins. Another disadvantages of Jenkins, by my opinion, is that it's imperative. Yeah, and it's not independent related to Kubernetes. What I mean by independent, for example, our application in Kubernetes usually have secrets, config maps, ingresses, and when I change config map or ingress or secret, it's not necessary to implement BlueGreen deployment, spin up pods and so on, because version of my application doesn't change only config maps or secrets. Another question that I faced when I use Helm, how to implement BlueGreen using Helm. It would be new release, or if it will be new release, how to switch traffic between old release and new release, and how to manage this. As you can see, implementing in Jenkins, it's really complicated task. And I found for another tools, and I decided that I want to try GitOps approach also, because what is GitOps? The idea of GitOps that Git will be your source, single source of truth of your infrastructure, and your manifest version of your application will store in Git repository and will be automatically synced with your Kubernetes cluster. The benefits of GitOps will be that every changes that will be done in our infrastructure, in our application, will have full history and paper trail. As a result, if something go wrong, we easily could track who makes these changes, who update some config map, and as a result, easily to revert back using git revert, for example. Another benefits of GitOps that for our CI/CD tools, we don't need grant any permissions. For developers also, we could don't grant any permissions and access to our Kubernetes cluster. From developer sides, it will look like they push some changes to Git repository and it magically appear in your Kubernetes cluster. And also GitOps fits to Kubernetes declarative nature for their manifests. It's okay. Yeah. How GitOps flow looks like. For GitOps, you need two repositories, Git repositories. One repository for your source code, where source of your application will start, and every pull request will trigger your CI part, and the final step of your CI part will be Docker image. And second repository for our infrastructure, for our Kubernetes manifests, and this repository will be used to deploy our application to our Kubernetes environment and so on. As a result, we need to find out any tool that will sync our Git repository to our Kubernetes cluster. During my investigation, I find out that the most popular one is Argo CD and Flux. And I start comparing them to decide which one choose for my project. Yeah, let's start summarize my comparison. Argo CD has more granular sync approach. It has application level synchronization. Instead of Flux, it has only repository level synchronization. What does it mean? Flux could sync only repository. You should point manifest and Helm chart in it, and it will sync it. But usually you could store in one repository Helm chart for different environments, values for different environments, and for different applications. And Flux doesn't cover this. For this case, Argo CD suits more. You could Argo CD has a custom resource definition like application, and you could specify different repositories, different folders, different values, different Helm charts for it. It looks better. Also, Argo CD supports more manifest tools declaration like Helm, YAML, Customize, Sonnet. Flux supports only Helm and YAML. In most cases, it's more than enough, but who knows, maybe in the future or in your project, we will use Customize or Sonnet. Yeah. Another benefit feature that has Argo CD is extensive management UI and CLI. For system engineer, UI, it's not necessary maybe, yeah, but when you present a tool to the customer likes UI, developers likes UI, because visualization helps them to understand how it works, how their application running in Kubernetes, how traffic flows works. It's good. Flux support only CLI tool. When you choose a tool, you need grant access your system engineers, your DevOps, your operations to these tools. As a result, we need some mechanism to granting permission to authentication. Argo CD supports a lot of authentication mechanism, and usually in a project you have a lot of Kubernetes cluster, you have a lot of teams, you could have a lot of teams, a lot of streams, project, and it would be great to use one tool for managing all of them. Argo CD supports multi-tenancy. But multi-tenancy that you could for different project, add different project, add different Kubernetes cluster and different application. Also, RBAC has such mechanism like role-based access control. You could grant to which Kubernetes cluster could which team deploy, to which namespaces, which application, and so on. And maybe the latest benefits is the metrics. I like monitor our tools, our Kubernetes cluster, and Argo CD also has dashboards and metrics for your Prometheus, and you could use Grafana to look what happens in your tool. As a result, I choose Argo CD. Let's look deeply in the future of Argo CD. As I already said, it supports range of tools that could be used to specify your Kubernetes manifest. About user management, Argo CD support integration with such interesting things like Azure Active Directory, or you could integrate it with GitHub and use GitHub for authentication your users and granting permissions to different cluster, to different projects based on GitHub group, GitHub project, and so on. Also, it supports OneLogin, Okta, Klog, OpenVision, and so on. Also, Argo CD has such abstraction like project. If on your project you have a lot of streams, a lot of teams, you could create separate project for them. You could restrict from which Git repository which team could sync their applications, their manifest. Also to which Kubernetes cluster, to which namespaces, which resources could they deploy to Kubernetes, which could not deploy, and so on. And it really looks great. You could use one tool for whole customer for different projects and so on. Another use case that I faced, for example, we update our production only at night. And when you use GitOps, you need the idea of GitOps that it automatically sync state of your Git repository to your Kubernetes cluster. And Argo CD supports sync windows. You could specify and which time it will automatically sync it, and at which time it's denied to sync automatically. And you could also specify manual syncs. For example, if you need to deploy some hot fixes at work time. Argo CD supports this. Also, if you has complicated deployment flow, Argo CD supports some kind of hooks. You could use them, for example, pre-sync hooks. You could use to perform a database scheme migration before deploying a new version of application. Yeah, for post-sync hooks, you can run integration and health check after deployment. And for example, using sync fail hooks, if something fails of your application, you could run cleanup or finalizer logic of your sync operation. And also, it would be great to receive notifications that new version was deployed, or if something goes wrong and we need attention and look what's happening in our cluster. Yeah, for example, pod couldn't start because maybe not enough of resources or fail in manifest. We wanted to be informed of this. And Argo CD has some tools for notification, like ArgoCD notification. You could send notification to your email, to Slack, to Telegram, and to a lot of other chat messengers. And as I said, it has dashboard. You could monitor your deployment tool, and also you could use Alert Manager from Prometheus for additional notifications if you need. As you can see, Argo CD has a lot of functionality, and I think you could use it and cover all use cases that you faced on your project. Let's look on my use cases. How really implement BlueGreen deployment or Canary deployment to Kubernetes cluster using Argo CD and Argo Rollout. Argo CD has such controller like Argo Rollout. What does it controller do? It provide some custom resource definitions for you, like rollout, and you could use these Argo rollout definitions to deploy BlueGreen or Canary deployment. And under the hood, this operator would manage your replica set creation, scaling, deletion, labels management, switching traffic, and so on. It also supports horizontal pod autoscaler. This operator will look how many replicas running of old version, spin ups the same amount of replicas of new version, and all the logic will be implemented under the hood by this operator. And how to change our deployment to use such benefits of rollout? It's really easy. You simply should change API version and kind from deployment to rollout. As a result, in your rollout, you could use such deployment strategy like BlueGreen or Canary Deployment. Yeah, it's really easy because, for example, if currently you use Kubernetes Cluster for a year, for example, on a project, and you don't need any BlueGreen or Canary deployment at it, and some services appear and you need to implement BlueGreen deployment, you could easily change your Helm charts and manifest and use such deployment strategy. It's really beneficial. How looks like BlueGreen deployment specification in rollout? You could specify auto promotion. What does it mean? For example, usually on a project, before real switching to new version, someone should approve it. Yeah, and Argo Rollout supports some feature. You could spin up new version and switch traffic only with approvement or promotion. But for TST or dev environment, you could set auto promotion enabled. It will be switches traffic automatically. Also, we need some preview services. For example, we deploy new version and you need ingress and some URL to access it and check that new versions work correctly. That's okay before final approval and switch real traffic in production, for example. Yeah, and you could specify delay down delay second. For example, we deploy new version, switch traffic, and for example, we face that something go wrong and we want to roll back. If you specify down delay second, old version won't terminate it automatically. It will waiting for this period of time. As a result, rollback will be also zeroed all time. It's one of the benefits, by my opinion. And how looks Canary strategy specification? You could specify how many percent of new version pods will we deploy, and then specify some steps. For example, we could deploy 10% of new pods, of new version of pods, and then waiting for an hour. And if something okay, we could continue and deploy 20% of a new version. And then maybe we will waiting until final approval for continue. In a demo, I will show you some examples of Canary deployment more deeply. And as I already said, Argo Rollout support horizontal plot autoscaler. You simply specify in horizontal plot autoscale specification that kind of is rollout, and it will work correctly. It's also great. Okay, I think we could move to a demo, and I will show you how it works or how it looks like. Let me share another screen. Yeah. It's Git repository that contains demo Helm chart for my demo. It also contains all commands that you need to deploy Argo CD to Kubernetes Cluster. It's pretty easy, and it contains all manifests that you need. For example, you could do this demo after day Z and show your teams how it works, how it looks like. And the first steps, I already deployed ArgoCD. You can see how it looks like. Currently, there is no application deployed on it. And deploy application really easy. kubectl, create, and application YAML. How application YAML looks like? We have a repo URL that points to GitHub repository that contains our manifest, our Helm charts, our values. Yeah, we could specify target. It could be branch, it could be tag, and so on. We should specify path to our manifest. In my demo, I will use Helm, and I specify path to a Helm chart. And you could specify values files that will pass to this Helm chart. Yeah, and destination. You could specify to which Kubernetes cluster and to which namespace are you going to deploy this Helm chart, this application, and project to which deploy belongs this application. Project needed, as I already said, for example, if you have a lot of teams, a lot of Kubernetes cluster, and all role-based access control is tied and bind to a project. Let me apply this manifest. Wait a minute. Yeah. I have applied this manifest. I simply run kubectl create and specify the manifest. As you can see, demo application appear, and let's come on and looks like how it looks like. For demo purpose, I disable auto synchronization. I wanted to show you how it works like, how it looks like, and so on. As you can see, our Kubernetes cluster is out of sync state. You can see which services will be deployed. It will be deployed to services, BlueGreen demo, BlueGreen demo preview. It will be deployed to Rollout, and it will be deployed ingress. Let's sync our repository with Kubernetes cluster. As you can see, synchronization in process. All resources will created. Rollout trigger replica set creation and pod creation. Yeah, as you can see, statuses of our pod it's healthy. Ingress creation in progress. And let me update page. As you can see, I deploy blue version of my application. In this application, color of these bubbles depends on the version of application. Yeah. Also, ArgoCD UI provides some interesting things that I wanted to show you. Wait a minute. Ingress in progress. Maybe some health checks is running. Yeah. As you can see, our application is healthy, synced, it's okay. And you could also switch to network flow view. You can see that we have load balancer in the cloud, the RP that you have ingress, and this ingress redirect traffic to two services. One services is for our application and one services is for preview. Currently, they are pointed to the same pods. Yeah, let's change version of our application. It's really very simple. Let's go to GitHub repository and change tag. Green. Update version. Commit changes. Yeah. And come back to the Argo CD. Refresh. As you can see, our Kubernetes cluster is out of sync because version was changed. You could also see what was changed. In our case, it changed only image. But for real life, it could be changed config map, It could be changed secrets or some specification. And before applying new version and deploy new version, you always could go to Argo CD and see what difference between live manifest and desired manifest. By my opinion, it's also great because when you use Jenkins, you don't know what will happen when you run Helm upgrade and so on. Currently, you could track all changes, what happens, and be okay. Let's synchronize them. As you can see, new replica set is split up with a new version, and 3 pods will be created. And you can see our application currently pointed to old version, and preview version is pointed to new version, to green. Your QI team, your developers, your DevOps, no matter, you always could go to preview version of your application before real switching, checking that it's okay, it's going okay according to the plan. You could also go to the traffic flow. As you can see, our BlueGreen preview version is pointed to new version of application. Okay, we will already check that's okay, our application works correctly, and we could switch traffic. It's pretty easy. Let's resume, and our traffic will be switched with 0 downtime to new version. As you can see, new version is green, and it doesn't affect our users switching traffic to new version. And old version will be terminated. Yeah, termination in progress. It will be terminated. As you can see, implementing BlueGreen deployment using Argo CD, it's really easy. You simply create custom resource definition, specify Git repository, specify rollout strategy. That's all. Compared to the Jenkins implementation, it's really easy. Okay, let's, as you can see, currently preview and new version pointed to green. And if you look at traffic flow, it will be all of the services directed to the same pods. New version deployed. Deployment is finished. Let me show how Canary deployment looks like. Let's update our manifest. I simple comment strategy BlueGreen to strategy Canary. Yeah. What I specify in this Canary strategy? Canary services, it's for preview. Yeah. And steps. The first steps will be 20% of traffic will be redirected to new version. And it will be paused until I approve next rollout. Yeah. And I will update it in 2 steps to show you that currently if I update simple manifest, nothing happened. Because Argo CD is independent. Commit changes. Currently, I update only strategy. I haven't update version of application. And let me refresh. our application is out of sync, we also could check the difference. It's I change only deployment strategy, and I could sync it without affecting my application, because strategy was changed, pod wasn't recreated. If to implement this logic in Jenkins will be really a little difficult. Yeah. Okay, let's change version of our application, and looks like how BlueGreen deploy or Canary deployment works. I will use yellow image tag. Commit, refresh, out of sync. You could also check what will be changed. Yeah, and sync. Moreover, Argo CD provide another feature, like you could look status of your pods, for example. Live manifesto of such resources. Events that this pod was scheduled, image was pulled, container created, started. For example, if your pod doesn't start, you could go to Argo CD and look events. And also you could look at logs. Yeah, maybe will be useful in some cases. Okay, as you can see, will be spin up only one pod of new version. And if you come back, you could see that only 20% of traffic will be redirected to new version. New version in this case is yellow. Yeah, and related to manifest, Canary deployment waiting to final approval. For example, it could run 1 day, 2 days, on 1 hour, 2 hours, waiting to final decision from QA team or from developers. Okay, let's resume final deployment. Yeah, as you can see, a new pod will be created because next step is 40% of traffic will be recreated to new version. 40% it would be, we will wait for demo purpose for 10 seconds and then increase amount of traffic to new version to 60%, waiting for 10 seconds, increase amount of traffic to 80 and 200 with interval of 10%. And wait a minute maybe, and you can see that Canary deployment in progress. Yeah, currently we see only yellow bubbles. As a result, Canary deployment is finished. And how it looks like, as I already see, it's really very easy to implement BlueGreen and Canary deployment to your Kubernetes environment using Argo CD. Let me switch to my presentation, and I will share presentation. Minute. What's next? For my demo, I show you demo without automatical synchronization and manual steps. But in real life, we don't want to do these manual steps. We want that will happen automatically. And how I want it looks like. I wanted progressive delivery. What does it mean? That we developers develop their application, build it, test it, and deploy subset of a new version to our Kubernetes cluster. And we have Prometheus Prometheus metrics, and I want run some analysis, analyze this Prometheus metrics, and depending on this analysis, make a decision, continue my Canary deployment or roll back. If it's successful, I wanted to progress my Canary deployment, increase subset of new version, run analysis again, and after that, make a decision. If something go wrong, I want it automatically roll back. And Argo CD supports such functionality. You could create analysis template. In this analysis template, you could use your Prometheus and metrics to make a decision, continue or roll back your Canary deployment. In this example, you could use ingress metrics and check status of responses to your application. And if amount of failed responses is more than 10%, we will roll back automatically. As you can see, Argo CD is a really interesting tool. I would recommend it to use it. And maybe that's all from my side. If you have any questions, I would answer them.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the great speech, Alexander. Wow, it was very interesting, especially for me as well. So let's probably move to the questions. We have some in our chat, and I'll start with the question which get the most of likes from the audience. All right, and this is the question from Denis Sinevich. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name is incorrect. Okay. Is it possible to add the logic to Argo possibilities? For instance, I want to use the single Helm chart for my app deployment, but want to apply additional values file together with the main one in the dynamic fashion, depending on the environment, for instance. In any CI/CD tool, I may use as a script for it. How it could be performed in Argo?
Yeah, let me share screen with manifest, and I will show you how it looks like. Wait a minute. Yeah, you could specify different values for different applications, for different environments in Argo CD. You specify application for your application. As you can see, you could specify values files. As a result, for different environments, you could specify different paths for your values files. It could be ACC, prot, and so on. And in your CI, you could update these values files in Git repository, because as I already said, we have separate repository for our infrastructure and for our manifest in Kubernetes. You could update it in your CI part after you finish build your image. You could update these values files, and these changes will be automatically checked by Argo CD and deployed to your Kubernetes clusters.
All right, thank you for your answer. And the next one will be from Mark-Jan Andrienko. Again, sorry for the pronunciation of your name. And the question is, in Canary deployment, is it possible to test more than one version of oh, come on, I'm sorry, guys.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
I slept off my tongue today.
It is possible. In this demo, I haven't covered this, but Argo CD has such Argo Rollout has such custom resource definitions that calls experiments, as I remember. Yeah, and you could specify different version of your application in these experiments, and it will deploy them. And you also could run different analysis to different versions. Yeah, Argo CD supports this. You could look at documentation, and there is examples of this how to use. Moreover, in my presentation, I have links to the documentation and to Argo CD demo. It has a lot of demo examples that you could take and start using to looking for how Argo CD works, which functionality it has, and how you could adopt it to relate it to your project. Yeah, Argo CD supports this.
All right. And the next one will be from the Andrew Sarubin. Could you compare Argo CD to Spinnaker or Tecton?
Yes, I have a little compare to Tecton, but mostly I focused on Flux and Argo CD because the idea of these tools is GitOps approach for Kubernetes. And as I currently know, Flux and Argo CD working on a project that names GitOps Engine, and they will combine their functionality to implement such tools, and it also will be joined to CNCF. CNCF would recommend GitOps Engine to use for your declaratively deployment. Unfortunately, this project currently is in development. It's not ready for using. As a result, I use Argo CD, but when GitOps Engine will be ready, I move to it.
Thank you. It was interesting to know. And the next from Janish. Are there any consideration or suggestion maybe for the development team if Argo CD is used for deployments in production? Also, will bad code affect BlueGreen deployment? What do you think?
A recommendation to production. Fortunately, Argo CD support such sync window. For my case, it really was useful because sometimes deployment to production is at night on something like this. And the recommendation to developers, maybe at the beginning for developers would be not convenient to deploy, to push their changes to Git Repository. Usually a lot of developers and people likes trigger some job and so on, but in reality it's really easy. You push to Git repository. And another benefits, Argo CD also could roll back all manual changes. For example, if someone go to Kubernetes cluster and do some stuff manually, then Argo CD will automatically roll these changes back. It will sync your Git repository to your Kubernetes cluster, and it's really beneficial because sometimes someone on TST environment or dev environment makes some fixes manually, and after that you could spend some time to find out why it works on TST environment or why it doesn't work on your ACC or staging environment. In this case, GitOps approach really help you to move to production. You also would recommend to go to documentation because Argo CD has best practices, and you could also look these best practices related how to implement this Argo CD on your project. For example, that I faced for Argo CD couldn't use Argo CD support Git repository. It also support Helm chart repository, but it doesn't support both of them. For example, using Helm chart from Helm chart repository, but values from Git repository. But you could work around, create meta Helm chart or umbrella Helm chart that you specify in requirements, the main Helm chart, their version, and values from this Git repository. I think you should look at documentation because a lot of interesting use cases are described in documentation, and I think you will find out what you need using webhooks. Also, Argo CD supports some plugins.
Yeah, Alex, unfortunately, our time is running to the end, and we still have this short period of time for the last question, but very briefly, okay? Is it possible, this is the question from the Matthias Kovac, and is it possible to implement the pipeline with the manual approval step?
Yeah, it's possible because Argo CD has CLI. For example, if you use for CI part or something like this, Jenkins or GitHub Actions, you could use CLI to make this approvement manual. Or as I show in a demo, you could grant access to Argo CD web interface, and approval could be done manually in this. But in our case, we use CLI to make this approval if some tests are running and so on.
Okay, thank you very much. And unfortunately, our time is almost over, and we don't have the time to go over all your questions on this session. So, Alexander, can you please name the best question of this after this session? Can you do this now, or you need some time in offline?
I need some time in offline.
Okay. So we have all the names. From the audience who pushed all their questions to the chat, so you can go through the questions. And for the audience, guys, I would like to encourage you to take your questions which were not answered during the session and put it into the portal, so you can continue the discussion with the speaker here online and the offline. I just put the link in the chat. So just to copy paste your questions, and the speaker will answer all these by all means. So you will be able to continue the discussion. So thank you very much for being here today. It was very interesting to know something new, and it was the very pleasure for me to have this conversation with you online and support this event. So thank you guys, and see you next time on the next session. Have a good day.
Thank you for participation. Have a good day. Bye-bye.